Radio Bypass, bringing you rock and roll music that deserves to be heard. Discover new bands. Here's some old favorites on Radio Bypass.
Hey, Radio Bypass. We've got a great guest for you here today, a returning guest. Joel Hoekstra has a brand new album, Crash of Life, which is awesome. Third Joel Hoekstra's 13 album. And let's just talk to Joel. Joel, welcome to Radio Bypass, bud.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time out today.
Yeah, thank you as well. So great new record. This is the third 13. Slightly different lineup than the last one, than Running Games. You've got returning players, obviously, Tony Franklin, Derek Sheridan, Vinny Appice, but a different vocalist than Running Games, and a man that I had just become familiar with just before your announcement of this record, and that this was going to be the singer on it, which is Girish Pradhan, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. You could correct me. And I'm really excited that he's part of this because he's a new discovery for me. I think he's a great singer. And having listened to the album just a couple of times since I got it, I think he's a great fit for the material you've put together here.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, in evaluating what we're going to do this time, Russell Allen, he's just got a lot of scheduling issues when it comes to getting to record my records and whatnot. And I thought, boy, this could take a really long time. And, the Frontiers sent me a video of Girish with his band. And I thought, well, he's amazing. But he's kind of, I'd say Girish and the Chronicles, his band, almost sounds like, early Skid Row or something, lots of high screaming. And I thought he's amazing, but, my model is kind of like Ronnie James Dio, Lou Gramm, Paul Rogers, and like put them all together, So in terms of like, what my ideal singer is. So I thought, let me send him the material and we'll start him and see how it goes, and kind of gave him some direction on what I wanted, maybe less of the the high screams, a little bit more of like just singing the song with good tone and emotion. And so anyway, he did a great job. It turns out he can really do everything. I mean, he's a real chameleon, when it comes to adapting himself to a song and like fitting in. And so he did an outstanding job, and very talented guy. I think he's got a bright future, and very happy to have him on board.
That's awesome. So that's how you got connected. I was wondering how you got connected with him. So it was through Frontiers then?
Yeah, through Frontiers.
Gotcha. Well, great album. And you wrote everything on here. So are these completely you, like all the music, all the lyrics, everything is
yeah, that's kind of the point of these albums, is it gives me an opportunity to be the person who's does all the writing, all the way from the guitar riffs to the lyrics to the vocal melodies, and get to have the last say on the mix and the artwork, etc. So they're an opportunity basically for me to have like the largest say so that I get in any type of working situation that I'm a part of. Every project and every band that you're in has different levels that you kind of have input on. So this is my one where I get the most input, that being said, my production style with the guys, when it comes to playing on it is pretty much like do your thing. I don't really say very much to Vinny Appice or to Tony Franklin or Derek Sheridan, et cetera, in terms of what they do. I just, it's cool. Just do what you want, play what you want on it. So the songs are written, but they get to put their stamp on it in terms of their parts, and, I feel like there's some artistic expression on their end as well. I know that when I get hired to do an album, that's what you want. You want somebody to say, hey, we're hiring you because you're you, and to do your thing,
Right.
So, yeah, everybody pretty much gets to just play what they want to play on it. Within regards to Girish, the way that's done is I do a guide vocal through the whole album. So I basically record myself singing the whole album.
Right.
which is a lot of work, writing all the lyrics and the vocal melodies and recording myself singing everything in itself is a bit of a project. But then he listens to that and basically just sings it a whole lot better than I do. And that's how you get the lead vocals. And then, of course, Jeff Scott Soto, who's a dear friend of mine, is nice enough to sing backing vocals on all these records that I've done with this. And, again, that just comes down to me, I think, probably thinking smart as a producer, like, look, I can do this, or I have this friend of mine who's like willing to do this for me, who is amazing, and they'll have some of the best backing vocals like you could have on an album. I just really want to make a great album at the end of the day.
Right, right. Of course, which you do. But I guess thinking about everything that you just said, everybody adding their stamp and everything. But when you've written these songs and you've got your idea, like you were mentioning about the type of vocal that you were hearing in your head for these songs, and now the guys come back with their own stamp. I mean, when you've written these songs, I'm assuming you probably have a pretty good idea of what you want the arrangement to be of these songs. So when they add their stamp, are you needing to kind of modify what you might have had in your mind already for these songs?
There's times where that happens, especially, Vinny can be like beautifully unpredictable, like he'll play sometimes something that I wouldn't have thought of. I think he like relishes kind of not playing the expected a lot of times, which is great. Because I think he brings, I'd say, some real authenticity to the albums in terms of giving it some grease. He doesn't play like a session drummer. So there's certain things that session drummers do that are like expected, and they play the expected and they play it real safe. And Vinny tends to play a little bit more just like what he is hearing. And he's got his own slant and style on drums that's very identifiable. So in terms of arrangement, I mean, the song forms are definitely there. There are some tweaks that happen after everybody's on there. I'll go, maybe it shouldn't go that extra time around, or maybe there should be 2 beats of silence. And thankfully, these days in Pro Tools, during the mix process, we can do all that type of stuff,
Right.
Go, okay, let's let that wait 2 more beats before the band comes back in. And so I do some work with Chris Collier on that type of stuff too when we're mixing. But yeah, in general, there's times where, Vinny will take songs down a different path than I expect. And I love that, and it's like, that's something that kind of, for me is fun, because then it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, but it's always great. Like everything he plays is great. So you go, all right, I'm going to roll with everything he does with that. So it does sort of like modify like the feel or parts that I would play in certain spots. But it's, it's always great. And for me, that's fun. I like that stuff. I like the musical adventure of making an album where it's like, oh, that's not how I pictured it, but let's roll with it,
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And speaking of these songs, so I got to tell you, I've got my top 3 favorites for now. Until I listen to it a few more times, it'll change again. But Find My Way, I made myself a note so I'd ask you about these songs in particular. So Find a Way, I love the way that song opens. Love the beginning, the way it comes out of the gate. Was that how it was originally, or was that something that got modified?
Yeah, I mean, riff wise, I think probably I look at that opening riff as kind of like Black Sabbath-y or something, and then interestingly enough, the song kind of goes funky after that. It's almost got a little bit of like a grooving kind of thing. And I've seen online people are saying it's kind of Deep Purple-ish. You can hear Sheridan's B3 stuff on there pretty loud. And I would say, that it just kind of came through right in the guitar riffs, and then the melody really came afterwards on that. So a lot of the stuff was that way this time, there's been other ones where I've done more of the guide vocals in advance or play a melody on guitar for Vinny so you can kind of hear what the melody is going to be. And this one, I was just like, look, it's kind of obvious what's going to be happening where. You can tell what's a verse and what's a chorus and what's a bridge, etc. Just do your thing and don't worry, I'll write something that fits everything when it comes to the vocals.
Gotcha. So did the lyrics come last then for you on these songs?
I would say for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like you've got everybody down, and I've got a vocal melody in mind for a lot of them. And then, yeah, I'll sit down and write the lyrics and vocal melodies kind of in one shot. Some of them had melodies already, like I said, but yeah, the lyrics tend to come last. And yeah, that's how we get where we get with it. I mean, it kind of goes scratch guitar tracks, meaning me just playing to a click track, my rhythms, and that goes to Vinny. Vinny does his thing, goes to Tony. And then from there, you kind of hit this period where people can work simultaneously, because I can work on my real guitars, but there's the scratch guitars there for Derek to be able to hear, like, all right, what's going to be a cool keyboard part. So Derek can be working while I'm working, and same with Girish, really, because as soon as the guide vocal is done for him, Girish can start doing lead vocals as well. So those things can kind of happen simultaneously. Then the only real rule of thumb, obviously, is you can't have backing vocals until you have lead vocals, right? So Jeff needs something to sing too. So that tends to kind of be the final piece of the puzzle, that happens, is the backing vocals.
Interesting. How long did it take to put this record together?
I honestly don't know. I mean, some of the riffs were from like past songwriting sessions, and I was like, that would fit. That would sound cool on the album. I've got stuff like that where I try to write for people, and it's there, and it's like, all right, that's that would fit on a Joel Hoekstra's 13 album. So, and then there's some that I've written for other things where I go, nope, wrong vibe. Won't fit, doesn't fit the mold. And so this is, I would say, this record kind of is a little more like Dying to Live, the first one that I did, where the songs are a little bit more diverse stylistically. You got all the way on the real heavy end with like Far Too Deep, and Damaged Goods and Everybody Knows Everything, and then obviously all the way to the ballads, kind of like Over You or Through the Night or Torn Into Lies, which obviously Far Too Deep and Torn Into Lies are up on YouTube if people want to watch the videos. But yeah, I'd say, there's a little bit more variety. And then there's a couple that, maybe were, the model has always been, all right, Dio-ish at its heaviest, Foreigner-ish at its lightest, but then there's some that, you can trace back to some of my influences. Like, you can take Don't Have Words, and that's very, the main riff is very AC/DC-ish, which is a big reason why I started. I just, at the end of the day, I just start thinking about like, look, this should just reflect like all the influences that got me into playing this style of music. I'm not too concerned about like, let's make it all sound the same,
Right.
At the end of the day, once you've got the same musicians on everything and the same instruments on everything, like I basically do the whole thing on a Les Paul, it starts to sound like, yes, it all belongs together. You have the same mix engineer. And so then it's, like, all right, this stuff all fits together. It's not like you're listening to something sonically different, like from track to track. So there's a couple songs that, I figured out ways to like heavy up, like Through the Night and You're Right for Me, that were from past writing sessions that, you figure out a way to like maybe toughen them up a bit, make it a little bit heavier, and have them be able to fit on the album.
When you're first creating these riffs and stuff, are you doing it on an acoustic guitar initially?
I would say Through the Night and You're Right for Me, the two that I referenced, were written on acoustic. And the You're Right for Me was kind of intended to be very like Jimmy Page, open tuning. I was trying to kind of write like, bluesy open tuning kind of thing. And Through the Night was something that, that it's an interesting one, because it was like intended really for, I don't know if you caught the collab video I did with Tony Harnell. We termed the band Echo Bats, the project Echo Bats.
No, I did not.
We did a song called Save Me From Loving You that was kind of like, like Brit, like kind of Brit pop, but it had those kind of more Beatlesy changes to it. So that song Through the Night kind of has some like almost R&B-ish kind of changes to it. So it was a challenge to kind of metal it up a little bit and heavy it up and kind of make it sound like, yeah, this isn't, something that doesn't work on the record. But that's kind of where that one came from. And you're right, for me, that was Russell Allen and I were kind of talking for a minute about doing something that was, a band, more of a band thing. And they were just song ideas that he just never followed through on or did anything with. And so Find a Way is another one of those. Actually, that was kind of one that I had given to Russell, and I was kind of like giving him some options, like, let's see what he goes with, and then I'll write more stuff along those lines. So Don't Have Words, the AC/DC-ish one, that was kind of for the Russell project. And all that stuff sounded like, yes, this is going to work on a Joel Hoekstra's 13 album.
Right. That's awesome. So let's see, I think you actually covered a couple of the other ones that I wrote down as my early favorites. But Everybody Knows Everything. I like the lyrics to that. Did that come to you right away?
I had that hook in my mind for a while, like in terms of a title. That's just, I think at some point in time, in looking at social media and looking at everybody's posts and how everybody's so rock solid 100% on what the world needs and what the world is. And, so I think playfully said to myself, man, everybody knows everything,
Right.
Or they think they do, at least at this point in time. So I try to refrain from that kind of stuff online. I just try to promote like the gigs I'm doing and keep it simple, just anything that's professionally related and steer clear of any of that kind of stuff online. I feel like it's counterproductive, very divisive and
so much so.
Yeah. It's not really my cup of tea. I've always been like I just want to be a professional guitar player, and all that stuff at the end of the day is so beyond my control. Like, why am I going to invest my energy in that?
Yeah, exactly. I feel the exact same way. I don't like getting involved in any of that either. And you're right. It's not in your control. I mean, it's important, I guess, that we all strive for goodness, and try to think about how we can improve the world type of thing. But to have all these arguments that you see, I mean, I've seen friends of mine on social media become not friends on social media. And then, of course, that spills into their real life relationships. And it's like, why?
I think in particular, the COVID period was really that way, because everybody spent a lot more time on their devices, and everybody became a lot more vocal about things and their beliefs. And, a very divisive period, really, in terms of just seeing people like, well, I'm not going to associate myself with that person anymore. That's it,
Right.
Like, man, I don't know, man. I'm equal opportunity. I got friends with all kinds of different political or religious beliefs or whatever. And, I just like to say, look, man, I'm just a guitar player. I know how to stay in my lane, I'm not the guy who knows it, I don't know what the world needs. I try to be accountable for myself and try to be a decent person, that kind of thing. And try to, obviously, do what's right. But that's where I kind of draw the line in terms of what other people want to do and how they want to live their lives. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely alike in that regard. And you do know how to play guitar. So it's good that you're just a guitar player, right? Because you know how to do it. Your sound is great. What amps are you using? What did you record your guitar?
I'm just in a New York City apartment here. So I usually use like a modeler and also run like a DI off of it. So we're able to play with different plugins and things like that to generate the guitar tone. So yeah, sadly, I'm not in a situation where I can mic up the half stack or anything here at home. And I'm a big fan of recording at home. I think that this remote recording gets kind of a bad reputation. People say, oh, imagine what it would be like if they were all in the same room together. And it's like, well, people would do less takes and be like, we're spending a lot of money to be here. And also you get self-conscious doing a bunch of takes in front of a lot of people going, man, it's taking this guy forever,
Right.
And the nice thing when you work on your own is you'll do as many takes as possible to get the best take out of yourself. In fact, that's one of the things that I like to do before I ever record a solo on a song is just kind of jam on it for a while. Like I'll take a solo section for a song and just kind of loop it and just jam and kind of collect ideas that I think are working the best before I go to actually lay the solo down. And that's good in a couple regards. I think it helps me form like better solos for the song, but it also helps me like just be a better guitar player. It's like my practice time,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
all right, well, let me enjoy this. I'm not just gonna like go track like the solo as fast as I can and be done with it. So
Right, right. But you also can't drive yourself nuts and do 1,000 different takes either.
yeah, I mean, I feel like I collect my ideas off of doing the jamming, and then I kind of start to form a framework for it, like as it goes, and find where those ideas fit. I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly content doing a lot of jamming to it, and then hopefully getting something that I don't have to punch myself too often in. I used to be really big on no punches in any solos. I wanted like just one take and that was it. In terms of, so I'd collect those ideas and then form a solo and then play it. But then I think eventually I felt like, well, maybe I'm losing some of the spontaneity, because once you've formed a solo, you've sort of written it.
Right.
So I like the kind of generality of like I have these ideas that all kind of work and then start to play, and I try to limit myself to punching a couple times in a solo maybe, but I am open-minded of like punching myself in these days. I used to be really like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not punching myself in.
Right. Probably we're worried it kills the spontaneity or something, right? I mean,
like I said, I feel like at
or
that point in time, you almost kind of write a solo because you want to be able to do it in a take. And then sometimes maybe that kills a little bit of the vibe. So
interesting. Interesting. Well, that's pretty cool. So, all right. So this album, you did everything. You produced it. You wrote it. You played guitars on it. These are all your babies. But do you have, because at the end of this interview, I want to add a couple of songs to this interview from Crash of Life. Do you have any particular song that you're like, man, I'm really digging this one right now? What song should we add at the end of this interview?
I mean, it's a really difficult album in that regard, because people can have a knee-jerk reaction to listening to one song and go, oh, the whole album's going to sound like that, because they're so used to that these days. And really, as you can tell by listening to it, that there's a wide variety on it. But I mean, if you're going to put two songs on, you could just go with the two singles, Far Too Deep and Torn Into Lies, which are definitely not traditional singles at all. Far Too Deep is a really heavy song, and
I love that song. Yeah.
And I would say, Torn Into Lies is a ballad. So I guess I wanted to just pick something from each end of the spectrum and be like, let me give people a little bit of taste on each side so they can kind of realize there's going to be some variety on this thing.
Yeah, and there really is. Maybe more so even than Running Games. Was my initial impression when I listened to this. I was like, man, some of these are almost, I don't know if I want to say poppy, but maybe a little bit kind of poppy. A little lighter. Some of the tracks.
Yeah,
I thought, and I don't remember. I haven't had a chance to go back and re-listen to Running Games now again since I've been listening to the new one, but I don't remember feeling that way when I first listened to Running Games.
Yeah, I'd say Running Games was after Dying to Live, which was definitely had a wide variety on it. The second album on Running Games, Frontier, said, hey, can you make it a little bit more focused in terms of the material this time? And so I did so. And then when it came to this one, they basically just had the attitude of, look, everything you do is good. Just make an album. And I was like, all right, cool. Thanks. So, tip of the cap to those guys for just letting me do what I wanted on this.
Yeah. And I like it because you get to show different flavors of what you do. I think that's cool. All right. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, so I don't want to keep you too long, but, and I know I'm sure I know the answer, but there's no chance we'll see a live rendition of this album, will we?
I mean, it's happened. We did do a gig on the Monsters of Rock cruise after Dying to Live came out. So it's actually not 100% unprecedented. I tell everybody though, it would be a financial commitment on my part. Like I would lose money to do it for sure, which is difficult, when you're a dad and you're not 21 years old trying to make it in music, so to speak. So you obviously got everybody's schedules involved, but I'd say with Girish involved, there's a little bit more of a potential for it. Vinny has been open to the concept and asked about it. And I wouldn't rule it out 100%. It'd be something that I would take a look at doing, but I'd have to be prepared to take a financial hit and be like, all right, because, I'm not going to take rock veterans on the road and be like, hey, let's stay at the Super 8 tonight. And, we're flying Spirit Airlines middle seats. And, so it's, you got to take everybody out and do the right thing and make sure that everybody's, treated well. So they
Right.
would, want to do it again, or potentially, say, yeah, that was a good experience. Right. So, but I wouldn't rule it out 100%, but, in terms of doing it, I don't know, I'd almost say there's a better chance of seeing, something like Revolution Saints actually get out, because, you've got three of us, and it wouldn't be like me funding the project, like, me saying, this is out of my pocket, that's what gets difficult and what people don't understand is a tour. It's like, yeah, that's great, but like, I'm going to lose my ass. Like if we do it, I'd spend so much money to do it. There's no way I would turn a profit.
Right. Yeah, just hotel prices, and I know bus rentals have gone up a lot. Everything has just gone up a lot.
Everything's gone up a lot.
And it's unfortunate for the fans that are dying to see you play live, but I totally get it. Yeah, it's rough. But yeah, that's why I had to ask, but I pretty much knew probably that it's just not attainable.
It might happen again. Something like, maybe the Monsters of Rock cruise or something like that could be really cool. You never know. And then possibly surround that by doing some other dates. I wouldn't rule it out. And also it would be a matter of taking a look at what kind of financial loss, it's not something I'm beyond doing. It's not like I'm like a total mercenary and all about money with music. I'm a believer in like investing, in yourself and musically. So like, I don't think you should ever let go of that. There should never be a point where it's like, no, I need to make money, not lose money. There's everything I've gotten that's good in my career came from basically doing something that made no financial sense. So there is something to be said for doing that,
Right.
there is logic in that, as crazy as it sounds. So I wouldn't rule it out, but probably unlikely.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then you touched on Revolution Saints, which I was going to mention since we last spoke. You're part of that now, right? Because you were not part of that the last time we had chatted. And then how's Mr. Coverdale? How's Whitesnake? Any chance of you guys being able to get out for your farewell tour this year?
David's doing really well. Anything like that would obviously be up to him. We interact all the time, but it's a lot just about life and like humor with him. And he's a great friend and great boss. And whatever direction he wants to go with Whitesnake, he's earned the right to do that, and he's got my support. So, it'd be amazing to get back out and finish the farewell tour. Obviously, I leave that's all up to David, and I leave it in his hands, and he's got my support, whatever he wants to do.
Sure. Yeah. So nothing on the books right now then for that.
Anything like that, you would probably know right about the same time,
Gotcha. And then you yourself, you've been going out and doing a few acoustic dates though, or something, right? Haven't you been playing?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of acoustic dates with Brandon Gibbs. That's something that we started I'd say about 7 years ago, just for fun, like between runs, if I was between Whitesnake and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, etc., or even Cher during some of those years. We'd head off and we'd go do a weekend somewhere, and those are cool because the people that turn up are the diehard fans, the people that really actually care about who you are when they see you in the bigger bands. Because what people don't realize is a lot of like the fans out there are pretty casual. You know, if you go to like a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show or whatever, and there's 10,000 people there, well, a lot of them don't really care like who that guitarist is up there or whatever, and they're not going to show. But there's some of them are actively following everything that we do, and so those gigs, playing with Brandon, you know, that allows the diehard fans to turn up. And so it's grown a lot. More people started showing up for these, and we actually took it international and went over and did a 2-week run in the UK. And I think we're going to do Europe later this year as well, which is kind of crazy. It's another one of those unforeseen things that comes along. We're like, man, this was just supposed to be for fun, you know? And like all of a sudden we're like actually doing tours with it, and going off, and you know, it's exciting when things like that happen in music. So that's a lot of the live stuff this year is with that, and Broadway's Rock of Ages band I've been doing fly dates with. We just go, you know, for fun, get together and play the music from that show, play the cover song. It's basically a cover gig, you know, but I play all the solos and play a guitar solo in the show, and everybody knows that we're all from other bands, you know, like Tommy Kessler, the other guitarist, plays with Blondie, and our bass player Winston Roy, you know, plays with Soul Asylum. So everybody's got like gigs, but we get together and we all have a good time because we did that show together for over 6 years. So
Right.
That's a good opportunity to get out and play live. And then, of course, Trans-Siberian should be happening November, December for me. So, you know, that's a great opportunity for people to see me live as well.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, my friend. Well, anything else you want to say about the fine crash of life before we wrap things up?
Stream it, download it, buy the physical product, please.
Yeah, I agree. Buy the physical product. Wait, there we go. Yeah, get that. Support Joel. Check out Joel Hoekstra's 13. You're on Joel Hoekstra's 13, all your social media handles.
Yeah. And if you want to connect to any of them, you could just go to my .com. I'm pretty old school and still have a .com. JoelHoekstra.com, JoelHoekstra.com. And then you can see the link to my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, even Cameo if you want a personalized message, things like that. So, you know, yeah, it's all on there.
Awesome. All right, everybody, stick around now. We're going to play the 2 songs Joel mentioned. One of my early favorites, Far Too Deep. We'll play that first, and then we're going to hear Torn Into Lies. Please support Joel Hoekstra. He's a wonderful guy and an unbelievable musician. Crash of Life, his latest. There's 3 Joel Hoekstra 13 albums, so you might want to just pick up all 3 of them. Thank you, Joel, for coming on Radio Bypass. Really appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it, man. Have a great day.
You too, buddy.
All right.
Cast a spell upon my life. your game. Honesty or fail to mention what you can't explain. Would be nice to be heard and seen.